And when we say that like being a founder is an emotional roller coaster, if you're not a founder, you actually have no empathy for what that actually means. And for anyone who's nodding their head and is a founder, like I've had that week, right? Where like I literally had some of the highest highs and like by the end of the day, some of the lowest lows, right? Where like I kind of just had to sit on the couch and like watch Arrested Development and like zone out, because if I like thought about my day, like I would just cry. So but then the next day, like again, another like, oh my God, like, and you know, it's just, it's a 0 to 10. Leslie, I don't know if you did that case at HBS, but it was a leadership case. And it was talking about how people who become founders or people become CEOs, right? Like kind of overachievers, we're either 0 or we're 10. There's no 5. I don't live in the 5. I don't live in a 3. I don't live in a 7. I'm 0 or I'm 10. And that's,
I did not do that case. I'm just a couple of years older than you.
it might have been because I remember when we did that case and I was like, oh my God, that's me. Like I've never heard someone explain it so perfectly that that I kind of, I'm either all in or I'm like all out. So that's, to be really completely honest with all the amazing women here, like that's been my week.
Well, how do you, I mean, it's such a reality of our lives, right? This is why I never, even though it's really popular to build in public these days and people are trying to like build their platforms that way, but like that's a terrible idea because I don't actually want everybody to know what like my crazy emotions are on like, I mean, I feel like Rory is the one like the buffer and like it gets real low. Like it gets real, you don't want that out in the world.
So what I found is men can build in public, women can't. We don't have that privilege. When I talk to women about if they want to do something like that, where they want to build in public, or if they want to do like equity crowdfunding, which we can talk about, I always say be about a month behind.
Yeah.
So literally, like if you are starting to go public about something, no, like almost
real time.
Yeah, and kind of like back to like Wi-Fi, as we were talking about before, like under promise, over deliver. And the only way you can do that is if you're about like 4 weeks behind what you're talking about. So like if you launch your campaign or if you start being some super public in April, like start with like March numbers. So you always have enough time to react to things and spin them, because that's at the end of the day, like literally my job.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing is you don't want people to start to be afraid of meeting with you. Right? Like if you're too unfiltered, then like you're going to see yourself reflected on Twitter and not be able to say anything. I'm actually seeing a lot of investors like, I don't want to meet that person because God knows what they're going to say about me afterwards. So you really want to kind of, take the long road. Like it's such a long, it's kind of like parenting. Like the days are long, but the years are short. And you have to take that long path. These relationships last, forever.
I think parenting is the perfect analogy, and I'm not a parent, but the reason I'm not a parent is because it looks really hard. And I'm like, and you have to choose your hard. That's like, you have to choose your hard. I've chosen to be a startup founder. And so like, that's my hard. And like, I don't know that I need to add any more hard to it. But I was talking to a parent the other day and I was like, oh my God, like, so I have to go from an investor meeting that could have been horrible. Right. Mm-hmm. And then I have to go and meet with my kids, my team. And I have to put like a super like, what's up? Yeah. Everything's great. Like, and I like to be like, I have to be that person for everybody. And that's what parents have to do, right? It doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a divorce or if work is, you just lost your, like, it doesn't matter. You've got to like, I always say it's like when you're a founder also, especially if you're fundraising, you're putting on Broadway plays 4 times a day, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. You got to put your game face on.
Doesn't matter.
The other day, Rory wanted to Slack me a Giphy that for like game face, and like all of the game face like gifs were dudes. We're like, what?
Yeah.
We have game face. I have game face. Look, it's game face. Anyways, okay. So you're not a mom. So you're an educator, right? Like at heart. So tell us about how this company got started.
So, right. It's kind of like the thing I get made fun of from my friend group the most is like, you've always been so focused on education and yet you don't want to have your own children. And by the way, to be a woman who like says that out loud, that like I personally do not want to have my own children, is
But
like,
why not, Max? You're gonna regret it. Sorry, that was sarcasm.
oh, who's gonna take care of you when you're old? Yes, let's have an insurance plan. That's why we should have children. Like,
And you're Cuban. Your parents must be like
oh,
horrified.
Leslie, no. So I'm a Juban.
Oh God.
So like, if you can only imagine the the two sides of guilt that I get about animal, babies and grandchildren, but I've been saying this for so long. Like very early on, I was just like, this is not my thing. That's not what I want to do. I'm like, it's just not my personal thing. I've never wanted it. I've never wanted a wedding. Like I'm just that kid. Like I was like, I want to be a super badass cow. Like I want to be in charge of things. And I saw also, I think when you're growing up and you realize like how penalized women are for having children, I was like, why would I want that? Like, why would I put myself in that? Again, it's not something maternal to me. And so like, why would I like, again, ask for more difficulty in my life? When it's something that like, it's not for me.
But with that said, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like,
No.
You're penalized just for the capacity to have them, not for the actuality of having them, right?
Oh yeah, no, I get that in investor meetings all the time. I actually had an investor say like, well, maybe we should get a COO in case you want to take 9 months off at some point. And like, I was like, 9 months. Wow, that's like a really specific amount of time.
Oh, God.
Is that how long it takes to learn Italian?
That's horrifying.
So yeah, I mean, no, you're absolutely right. Like you're damned if you do. And also like when I walk into a room and I have no rings on and I'm not visibly pregnant, that's like even more concerning because it's like, oh, it's coming. Obviously it's coming. She's a woman. It's coming. And it's just like, I used to joke about this. I almost put a slide in my deck that was like, I can't have babies. Are we done? Let's just like move on. Like just to like stop thinking about it. Let's you can give me $1 million and like trust that. But the thing that also pisses me off though is that like I shouldn't even have to say that, right? There was an investor, an angel investor in Miami. I knew him, like he knew that I was like a crazy feminist or just a normal feminist. And he literally said to me, I don't invest in mothers because when I give them my money, I know that like they can only work sometime on the idea and they won't be full-time on the idea. And I was like, so, but you didn't say parents. You said mothers. Yeah. So there you gendered it. And so you assume that a dad you can invest in because he can be 150% on the business, but like, and have no parenting responsibilities. I think this guy was a dad too, which is also very frustrating. So it's just like, it's all of that bullshit. And sorry to swear, I know we're recording this.
Are we like okay to swear today, Rory? Can you like?
Can we?
Yeah, okay, great.
Let's make my life better. Thanks. So it's that week. So I just it's like and that's I think the most. That's why it's like it's not worth it to complain about it. It's not worth it to even like talk about it and like waste time on it because it's just you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, as we said. And it's more important to think about like let's be asset based, right? Like how do we proactively respond to? How do we think about it? How do we preempt it? How do we build a sisterhood around us that's collaborative, that allows us to like create power in different pockets? Like how, like I call it my Harriet Tubman move, which is like, how do I get to freedom and then turn around and bring other people, right? So like, that's like my job every day is like that's how I'm going to dismantle this stupid system. It's not by like arguing with this guy who doesn't want to invest in women. Like you can't save stupidity. So like why try?
Oh,
like
that's one of my favorite moments ever. That's one of my favorite founder moments ever. Okay. I was gonna say
I was supposed to tell you about how I started Caribu.
Yeah, tell me about I was about to start airing my like sad investor stories, but tell me, I actually do want to know where did it come from? You've been working at this for a while now. How did it get started? Folks, we gathered questions from all the attendees when they registered, and folks want to know, how did you meet your co-founder? How did you know it was right? Like, how did the idea come about? Tell us that founder story.
Oh, all right. This could take up the whole hour. So like stop me or be like, oh, let's dig into that. Let me see if I can like tell it as quickly as possible. So one, I've always been in education. So we'll start there, right? And I think what I found in my journey was, so I tried everything. I wrote my senior thesis in college about education. I went and became a high school teacher in Liberty City in Miami with Teach for America. I went to the Gates Foundation. I worked for Mayor Bloomberg under mayoral control. I worked at DC public schools under Michelle Reed because I was like, that's how we're going to fix it. I went to the freaking White House because I was like, that's how we're going to fix it. I ran Teach for America's office in Miami because I was like, nonprofit and teachers, that's how we're going to fix it. I mean, I tried everything. And what I found at the end of the day was that it was adults fighting with adults about what's best for adults. And when you grow up like me as a Cuban Jew, where your family has literally fled from country to country to country, you grow up in a family that always says the only thing you can take with you when you flee in the middle of the night, which is like already horrifying as a child, you're like, why are we fleeing in the middle of the night? Is what's here, en su mente, right? Like, and it gets translated into like your education, but like no one in my family had formal education. I was the first one in my family to graduate from college. Like, it's literally like recipes and things they had learned by apprenticing in their parents' stores. Like, just all of that is literally all you can take, and it's your only social currency in the next country to help you get ahead. And so here I am, this kid who like totally believes in education, believes in educational equity. And equity is important, not equal educate, it's equity. And here I am again, trying the traditional route. I guess what I've found, and you'll see this in my fundraising story as well, is like, and as you've heard about like just the things that I want in life, like I'm just not a very traditional person. I don't fit in boxes. I never have. I don't like boxes. And so like, as I was like, I kept going through this like traditional, like the things you're supposed to do in your career if you want to change educational equity. And I was like, this doesn't fit. And this isn't helping anybody. And it's not moving the needle. No child in my 20-year trajectory of like trying to make education better has actually benefited from anything that I've done. This is ridiculous. So I got to a point, I was actually running Teach for America in Miami. So I was this nonprofit executive director, right, of this national organization. Thought I was like, hot shit, making change. And I realized like I wasn't. And so I wanted to go into ed tech, and I put a profile up on this website called Founder Dating. So it was like, it's long gone. It's been bought by, don't look for it because it doesn't exist. It's very upsetting. But now it's called Co-Founders Lab. So Co-Founders Lab bought Founder Dating. But Founder Dating was like this super crude Craigslist type of, like, there was just no UI. It was like, put a profile up and like, good luck. And I put a profile up. I was like, look, I can't build anything. I'm not the tech side of this, but I'll sell the shit out of whatever I believe in, right? Like, that was like my tagline. Like, I'll sell it if we can build something together. So I left the profile up, and then I got into the White House Fellows Program. So I ended up going up to DC. I'm working for Obama. I'm at the Treasury Department, like trying to figure out what's next. I really want to go. That's kind of where I started to realize like, okay, I've done all this education stuff. It's not working in the traditional sense. I really want to focus on early childhood because, again, as a 12th grade teacher, I started to realize like, holy crap, if we don't get them when they're babies, like, and we just keep showing that adults don't, it's the adults are the problem. If a child cannot read by 12th grade, that's not on them.
Yeah. Full
stop. That's not on them. And so how do we get them before adults even get involved? Really, right? So anyways, or the traditional system. So I like put up their profile, I'm in DC, and then all of a sudden, like a year later, no joke, like to the day, I get a ping. And there's this guy on Founder Dating who's like, hey, saw your profile. I'm an introverted engineer, so I would love someone to sell my shit if they believed in it. I live in Miami. I'm looking for someone with an MBA and an education background. Do you want to chat? And I was like, and I had like a good job at the Treasury Department that I could stay with. And so I flew down to Miami because I had to come visit anyway. And we locked ourselves in a room for like 72 hours and did a hackathon because I was like, I don't know this guy, right? And we tried to work on something that like So he had already built kind of the first version of this, like kind of the prototype of it in business school. And he like had this idea, and that's why I was excited to talk to him. And I was like, I like this Caribu thing, sounds interesting. And it, to me, really solved the problem of early childhood education, right? The fact that we could get to kids younger, we could get to them and not have to go through the bureaucracy and nepotism of like school districts and teachers and all these things. And then I was like, okay, but can I professionally marry you? And I think that's another thing that you kind of have to think about with your co-founder. And this goes back to the roommate stuff, you know, like try not to pick someone that you know or that you're really good friends with as a roommate, because you might kill each other, because you're going to spend a lot of time with each other. And but at the same time, this is a huge risk. This is some random guy I'm meeting on like some founder dating website. So we did this like 72-hour hackathon, and like I trusted him. I was like, okay, like I did a lot of things. Like I have like all these little mental tests. Like I was like, I took him out to a restaurant and I was like, how does he treat the waiter? Like I was
that's how most people do dating. You realize like I tested my husband on that, like checking how much he tipped.
Yeah. All those things kind of matter, right? And like you know, because at the end of the day, like it is dating. It's a non-romantic relationship. Right? It's a non-romantic relationship. So I magically found him, so no one can repeat that. But I do think that there's a lot of ways to think about your co-founder. You don't always need a co-founder. I think that's the other thing I like to tell women. I think we women do the thing where it's like, oh, I'm only 80% qualified for this job, I shouldn't apply, right? It's like we do the same thing with co-founders, like, oh, like no one's gonna trust me to like run this company. Like fuck that, like go run the company and then like hire people. Like hire them, like Sarah Blakely, right? Like very few of us become Sarah Blakely because we you know lean out. But anyways, but also co-founders are amazing. I don't think I could do this by myself. It's just too hard.
I mean, speaking of the long-term relationship, I'm going to transition us to fundraising, and once again, we kind of face this damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because for most of us, when it's our first time raising and like first time launching a company, growing a company, you don't really have your choice of investors, right? Like for like real people that like are not kind of spinning out of Coinbase today or whatever, right? Like we don't have the marquee investor that's going to make a bet off of a PowerPoint. But on the other hand, whoever does come on board, you are professionally married to them for a really long time. The more successful you are, the longer you're going to be in like some form of relationship with them. So tell us about kind of those early fundraising days. How did you think about all of this?
So I said that to someone. I was like, oh, you know, I'm married to my investors. And they were like, oh, honey, you got kids with them. And I was like, damn.
Yeah. It's so tricky. Beggars can't be choosers. Like you need money.
Yeah.
But it also, like that early money sometimes can be quite toxic.
So that is probably the hardest thing that you'll have to do, as is if you know that money is bad, you will have to make a decision. Like you will actually still have to make a decision about whether you want this money or not. That's effed up, because you will be presented with terrible fucking deals, and terrible people will offer you money, and you will know it. The worst, the one you can't, right? Like sometimes you just don't know, right? The person presents himself really, but this happens in, again, you know, romantic relationships as well. Like the person presents himself super well, all of a sudden you're married, maybe you know, like you have a kid, and then all of a sudden the person like shows their true colors, and that you just have to deal with later. But if you know going in that this is bad money or this is a bad person, unfortunately, as women, we still have to sit down and say, do I want to do a deal with this person? Because at the end of the day, you have a business to run. And unfortunately, that business usually needs money to keep going, especially at certain stages, right? At certain stages, in the beginning, like, you can probably go for a long time bootstrap. That's privilege though, right? To be able to do that. But at the later stages, once you have like kids to feed, I call them my team. You've got to actually, like, you have to sometimes make deals with devils. I'm very, very fortunate. And again, this is not everybody's case, but I've been very fortunate where I've been able to avoid those deals, and like turn to other ways. So this is why I am such a freaking crazy person when it comes to making sure that women understand that they have options, because I think a lot of women found their companies and think VC is the only option. And yet there are so many different ways to fund your businesses. And unless someone like me comes and tells you like, oh, these are the things, and this is why you would think about these things, like you may not even know to Google that term to find out about that, right?
So give us some of those options. What are some of the things that you explored?
Well, so I'll walk you through kind of like my funding journey, and I'll kind of tell you a couple of reasons for like why we made certain decisions. But so in 2017, when we publicly launched the company, I was like, I have an HBS degree. I'm adorable. I'm like, all my friends are in Silicon Valley. They're all investors. I'm just going to go like run around and like talk to them, and I'm going to get like checks thrown at my head. Right. First of all, not cute enough, apparently. Two, I was a first-time founder. Right. Which like doesn't matter. At the end of the day, when you're a first-time founder, it really doesn't matter what you look like, right? Like, yes, men will get more preference, but as a first-time founder, like even men hit a block there, because you say stupid things when you're a first-time founder. You don't know what you're doing. You learn on the job. Also, I was making a ton of mistakes in the beginning because like all of my friends from HBS, like Harvard Business School, I always just call it HBS, but from business school, were like equity, like growth partners at like funds, like, and I was asking for like, $10,000 checks. They were like, Max, we write $10 million checks as a minimum. And I was like, what? Like, I was just meeting with the Robert, like, I didn't know what I was doing. So I was like, shit, I need to like completely change my game here. And I started doing pitch competitions. So I highly recommend that to founders as kind of the first year as you're bootstrapped, right? Like try not to take other people's money. Like you don't know how to price your company. You don't know these people, right? You're just starting to meet them. Start building relationships, but keep yourself funded by pitch competitions. And we were a B2C company, so that does make a difference, right? We were a consumer, which means that when I did pitches, people actually understood what I was saying and what I was talking about. And they also had that pain point. But the smart thing that I did, I think I knew what I was doing, but like now looking back, I was like, damn, Max, that was smart. Every pitch, I would people, and I would like get their emails and their business cards. And I started creating like a CRM of all of these people, a crowd. This will come in handy later. I'll explain. But like all the judges that judged our pitch competition, all the people that were involved in the pitch competitions. First of all, we were getting free marketing. We were getting, a non-dilutive cash in some cases. And we were meeting all of these people. So 2017 actually was great for that, because by the time I went back at the end of the year to raise from angels, they were like, you're still alive? Like, we did not expect that. Here's the thing with angels, you can't go to angels first, which I tried. I was like, oh, angels. And they were like, where's your friends and family round? And I was like, what friends and family? I'm like a Latina kid from Miami. Like, what friends and family? They're like, but you went to HBS. And I'm like a little Cuban kid. Like, what, like, like, I don't know rich people. Like, that's just not so you end up a lot of times in this like weird chicken or the egg, because angels won't invest in you because you didn't do friends and family you don't have, and like you can't unlock angels. So anyways, so finally I did the other option, which was, okay, I don't have friends and family, but let me go prove myself, be super relentless, start winning competitions left and right. Let me do something where I can validate and de-risk the investment for people. That's literally all investors want you to do. Just keep de-risking this thing for me. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, investors want to invest in treasury bonds. That's their risk level. Okay. So, all right. So I do the pitch competitions. We start raising, we get the angels. Then I win the 1776 global pitch competition, which comes with an investment from Steve Case. And remember that Excel spreadsheet that I was building? So I send everyone on that list an email that says Steve Case just invested in Caribu. And I got checks thrown at my head, right? So at every point in fundraising, it's about who has the leverage. So when you have leverage, you can pick who is going to be on your cap table. When you don't have leverage, when you're like, things are going okay, but like, we're not the hot, disposable camera company on the market. And like, And like, my numbers aren't like, I mean, they're good, but they're not like groundbreaking. Like, it's really hard to choose who your investors are going to be. So, so then, after Steve Case, we ended up raising $1.3 million. So that's where I became the 59th Latina to raise over $1 million in just in funding. That included AT&T, Steve Case, a bunch of family offices, angels, whatever. So we closed out in 2018. So the rule of thumb is that if you raise $1 million, you have about 12 to 18 months before you have to raise again. The other rule of thumb is that it takes about 6 months to raise. So if you really only have 12 months, then 6 months in, you have to go back and raise. If you have 18 months, you have to start raising in 12 months. So 12 months later, I go out and start raising again. And I was actually at a Latina event for South by Southwest. I'm pitching, I'm presenting, and this other Latina comes up to me afterwards and she's like, girl, she's like, I work at Republic. You would be perfect for equity crowdfunding. So this is 2019, right? And I was like, ooh, caca face. Like, no. I don't like this equity crowdfunding. I've heard horrible things. I'm not interested. Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you. I'm putting you in my little CRM, but I'm good. So then I meet an investor who seems like the perfect fit for Caribu, right? Like, his background was perfect. He had a small office, so he could make the decision. Like, it was super fast. And we're so excited. He wants to invest $500,000 in Caribu. So remember, I'm like about to, I'm like running out of runway in about 6 months. I need to like raise. And also, just for everyone in the room, it was like becoming the summer, and you don't raise venture capital over the summer. That's just, it just doesn't happen. You don't raise it over the winter holidays, and you don't raise it. It's think of the college semesters as the time that you can raise from venture capital. That's like when they'll take your call. Okay. So we're about to hit summer. I've got this $500,000 on the table. I'm like, this is going to be amazing. And then he's like, here's the term sheet. And it was predatory AF. Like, it was literally betting against us and just protecting his investment. So at the end of the day, in 12 months, if I didn't hit certain milestones, I could lose my company to him. And I was like, I did not work this damn hard to take $500,000 from you and possibly lose my company to you. So I get back on the phone with Cheryl, who I just met at South by Southwest. And I was like, hey, remember all that horrible stuff I said about equity crowdfunding? Can you like tell me a little bit more about it? And like learned a ton of stuff, started talking to other founders who had done it, started to realize I was like, this is actually a real option and allows me to not have my back against the wall, allows me to tell this guy to F off, and I can go raise money on my own terms. And so I turned down his $500,000 and ended up raising 3 times as much in equity crowdfunding on my own terms. And that is why I am the biggest effing proponent of equity crowdfunding, especially for women and people of color, because it gives us the freedom to go out there and raise money for our businesses so that we can keep it operational, so we can hire amazing, diverse teams, because that's what we do. So we can build products for our communities, which makes usually women and moms' lives better, right? Like, think of all the products out there that never get funded, therefore never see the light of day, that would have made moms' lives easier, but weren't invested in because when you pitched it, it was a bunch of white dudes at a table that were like, I don't understand this market. Why do you need a better breast pump? Why do you need Uber to pick up your kids in a safe way? Not a problem I deal with. And you're like, well, that's so great for you. So anyway, so I go to equity crowdfunding. Equity crowdfunding was fantastic. So again, if you're a consumer company, it not only allowed me to raise capital, it allowed me to like do marketing, right? Like, we ended up with a ton more customers. We ended up with celebrity investors. Like, we got a ton of press and PR. It was amazing. We ended up raising $1.7 million in equity crowdfunding. And I was the first Latinx, male or female. And I use Latinx because, like, guys, this sucks. Like, if I say I'm the first Latina, then everyone thinks some Latino beat me to it. And I was like, not today, not today. So that's why I say, like, first Latinx, male or female, to raise the $1 million in equity crowdfunding. So it used to be $1 million cap. Thank you, Magdalena. So it used to be $1 million cap. Now it's $5 million. Now it's like a real game changer. And by the way, it's super hard to raise $1 million and even harder to raise 5 million. So like, don't go out there thinking like, oh, I'm just going to raise $5 million. But the fact that you as a business can unlock $5 million is a real game changer, because $1 million doesn't really go that far at a certain stage of your business. So here's the most interesting thing. So back to the point of like, who do you want around your table? So COVID hits. So we raised that in 2019. Thank God had that money, because COVID hits March 13th, right? Friday, 13th in the US. Friday, sorry, so that's 13th. So Saturday, the 14th, we decided to take down our paywall because we were like, yo, there's like a pandemic, kids are suffering. There were almost 1 billion children out of school by that point. Again, we had just done this funding, so like we knew we could survive. And we 10x the company in 24 hours. Like every metric, 24 hours,
Wow.
10x bigger company I was running. It was insane. And so we like, of course, every investor, because I'm a woman, was like, well, we want to see more data. We want to like 10x in your company, not a big deal. Like, well, let's see if you 10x it tomorrow. So anyways, by the
Is
end,
it really a big enough market, Max? Really?
are you going to survive post-COVID? Are families going to want to talk to each other after the pandemic? Oh, yes, you're so right. Such a concern. That's why I'm saying you got to de-risk this stuff for people. Like, it's like amazing. So anyways, we end up in a situation where we see the writing on the wall. The holidays are coming, and this is hopefully the last holiday season where families couldn't get together physically. And we were like, yo, we're the first mover in this space. First of all, we created this space. So of course, we're the first mover. We have to take advantage of this holiday season. We also ended up finding out that we were one of Apple's 15 best apps of 2020. So like, we were like, we got to milk this. We got to market this. We got to like capture the market and be aggressive. And so we could have like just kept growing at the pace that we were going at, but we wanted to go faster. So I ended up raising a pre-A, I would call it. And I got to choose my investors because I was in the position of power. My round was led by a Latina, and the whole round was women or Black men. So you get to choose when you're in the seat of power. That's very rare. So I guess my other my other piece of advice for everybody is, even if you don't need to raise, and again, don't like, raising is like, that's not the reason but if you need fuel, try and do it when you are in that position of power, because first of all, you come across better in the meetings, right? Because you're like, I don't need your money. And that is, that is like catnip for investors. They're like, what do you mean you don't need it? Like, I want to give it to you. And you're like, I don't need it. It's like crazy. It's so annoying. And so like, I didn't need their money. And so I was able to like, and there were a bunch of like white men who were interested in the round. And I was like, no, I'm good. Thanks. So yeah, so if you're in a place where like your numbers are fantastic, or you've got some kind of tailwind behind you, you just won some crazy award like Apple, like that's the time to go to that CRM and like start reaching out to people and raise the round, because you can get that momentum, you can get people excited about you, and then you get to choose who you make insanely wealthy down the line.
So when did that round close, and how much did you close for?
So that was a pre-A, we called it, and that was back in November, we closed it.
Okay. So what's in store for you now?
So now we're on the hamster wheel, right? Because we've been taking money from people, which means you have to keep taking money from people, unless you exit, right? And you get bought or you IPO. So I think, my answer always about like what's next is like global domination. Because like literally, like that's what I wake up every morning, like it's very pinky in the brain. I wake up every morning, I'm like, today's the day. Like we just like literally are the Zoom of like, the kids video calling space. And then every night I'm like, all right, we didn't make it exactly where I wanted to be, but like, cool, we're a little closer. Tomorrow's another day. And literally, by the way, if you can't do that, if you can't wake up every morning and be like, today's the day we capture the entire world, and then at the end of the night when you didn't do it, say, that's cool, I'll do it tomorrow, then like being a founder, it's too hard. Like you have to be kind of a little crazy in that sense. But yeah, I mean, for us, there's a lot actually in store. There's a lot of really cool things we're doing with the product. There's a lot more international expansion for us. There's even US expansion. Like there's still people a year into the pandemic that don't realize that you can have a more interactive video call with a kid. So when the pandemic hit in March last year, as we were talking about, Leslie, right? Like every adult had Blue Jeans, WebEx, like Zoom, like there were 17 different options to have like adult enterprise level video calls. But when parents looked around and said like, oh, like, well, my kid hates FaceTiming with grandma because it's so boring and grandma doesn't know what to ask my child. When they looked around and said, is there a better video call for kids? The only person that was there was Caribu. And that's how we ended up 10xing, right? Because there's nowhere else where you can video call and read a book, play a game, draw together, play tic-tac-toe, do a turn-based game all together in one app across all platforms. So you can do it web, iOS, Android, phone, tablet. It's like the most, we could actually call it a magical Caribu call because it's such a magical experience to be able to do something interactive, to actually play together in a video call. So
There's a question in here. We only have Max for another 13 minutes because she has a meeting right at 5 o'clock that she wants to prep for. So I'm going to try to be really respectful of your time and not do like Costa Rica time with you. So that's a long way of saying, if you guys have specific questions for Max, can you start dropping them in the chat for me, and I'll pick and choose and ask you some of the ones that pop out to me. But so this is a question from the audience from early on in our conversation, right? So it's really, really hard for anyone to naturally wake up and brush everything off from the day before, right? So what are some of your tips and tricks on going from 0 to 10, right? I'm like hyping yourself back up and like believing that you got it in you to fight another day every day.
I know. I actually wish I like don't actually have any good strategies. Unfortunately, like I was just built this way. Like I'm a machine, right? Like things don't affect me. Like I drink coffee, I sleep 4 hours a night. Like I'm just built this way. So I'm probably like, if you're not built this way, then you talk to someone who does have strategies. I don't know. I will say there's a couple things that I do that always help, right? Which is one of the things that our team has is a positive feedback Slack channel. If I ever have a really bad day where I'm not in a good place, I try to go to that channel and like read the positive feedback from our customers. And again, you have to have customers to do this, right? But like, I see that we're changing the world and we're changing the game for so many families and for kids and like grandparents, and we're solving social isolation, and like kids are learning to read, and like families are so grateful. And some grandparent in India met their grandson, who they haven't seen since he was born. Like, I mean, just like all this stuff where you're just like, okay, all right, right? Like ground yourself in the thing you're doing. The other thing, and this doesn't help you if you're already there, but like I always tell people, like if you're not obsessed, like obsessed with the problem you're trying to solve, if you just like happen to build something, you're like, this is cool, I can make money off of it. Like, don't be a venture-backed founder.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can have like like a lifestyle business, but like don't go venture-backed. And I say that very specifically, right? Where like people are breathing down your neck about stuff, right? Like your day is hard enough. You don't need other people on it. Unless you are obsessed. And I think that's the other thing that gets me through is like every night, like if I've had a horrible day, I'm like, even when I was like sitting on the couch, really bad day, watching Arrested Development, like I would see something in the show and I'd be like, oh, that's actually a really good idea. Like I'm going to email the team about that because I think we could like steal that, right? Like you have to be literally like, there's nothing in your day where you aren't like, oh my God, that would be great for the company. Or like, oh, that would actually, like I go to brunch, which by the way, I stopped seeing my friends because I became this annoying person who like, all I could talk about was Caribu. And I was like, oh, you're pregnant? So in like 9 months, I'll have a Caribu customer. Like I was like, it's like, that's who I was. And I was like, this is not fun. And no one wants to be around me. But I would like, back in the day when I would go to brunch, I would look at the menu and I was like, oh, that's like a cute way to say like bundle. And I was like, and then I was like, oh, let's add that to our marketing copy. Like you have to be that level of like obsessed. And I think if you're there, you can weather any storm. If you're not there, that storm is going to hurt a lot more. So that's not super helpful if you're already in it and not obsessed. But I
think people I think we get more than one at bat. And I think that when you are in the journey of building a company, it might feel like this is your one and only chance, but it's actually not. Like when you take a step back, like 5 years from now, right? Like this is my, depending on how you count, this is my second or third company, right? Like a female founders, and I have a VC fund. So like you do get to come back from picking the wrong thing if you realize that like the river doesn't run deep enough, the market is not big enough, like there's whatever, right? Like I ran out of money. Like I think I think it's really important to allow ourselves and each other and even encourage each other to like close shop, move on, fail up.
Yeah. And I always say, because I get this question a lot from founders as well, is like, when do I give up? Right. Because like we're so trained and it's on every fucking co-working wall, like we don't give up and like we fail like forward, like all these things that are supposed to motivate us. But at a certain point, like, so I would say if investors are investing in you, but your customers could care less if you live or die, like run.
That's a good one.
That's when
That's a good
you should
one.
walk away, right?
That's a
But
good
if investors are saying no, which most likely they will, but your customers are rabid for what you're building, if you're changing lives, if they love what the product that you're building, if they're retaining at crazy rates, keep going. Like walk through walls until you build a business around it. That's when you don't give up.
I want to switch gears really quickly. This is a question that we had from registration forms. There's a lot of hype around Miami. So tell us, what is it like to build a company in Miami these days? Is the hype real, or are we all just jealous that you guys have had more permissive COVID policies for the past 12 months and better weather?
So I've been repping Miami since the 80s, and all of a sudden, like the mayor tweets about Miami and everyone decides to show up or whatever. I've been trying to get everybody down here for a long time. But now our housing costs are like ridiculous. Like it's super, so like now I'm not excited about that. But the hype is the hype is the hype is seasonal, just like our tourism season, right? Everyone's excited to be here during the winter, and then they get their first hurricane and everyone's like freaking out. Or it gets like hot as balls.
It's not funny.
Okay, I'm out. Yeah. So I think we're gonna see a lot of seasonality as soon as like May or June hits. But I do think people are actually like putting a stake in the ground here, right? There are funds that are, and again, there's a lot of businesses do this, is like one partner wants to just hang out in Miami, and so you have an office here all of a sudden. But the fact that there's on the ground access to people is going to be a change. Unfortunately, it's a lot of dudes and a lot of tech bros that are moving here, which is I'm not a fan of, right? Like there's all these people are like reaching out to me like, oh, you should get blah, blah, blah to invest in you. And I was like, I don't want that person 10 miles from my company. Like, I don't like, no, I'm good. Right. I try to be very selective about like who I bring around the table. And like, by the way, bringing on a bad investor could kill your company faster than any downturn in the market or any bad metric, like just really, really could. So I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of investments into women yet, right? People have been investing since December when the tweet went out, and like, it's a bunch of, and again, we're a very Latino community here, but very white presenting. So white presenting Latino dudes are getting the deals. So where are the women? Where are the Black founders?
Yeah.
Where are the underestimated founders getting so it's not an equal distribution of capital or access still. And Miami is a very, very woman-led and diverse-led tech ecosystem. So we are fighting, trust me, and we are doing all of our back channels. All of us know the mayor, right? Like all of us know everyone who works for the mayor. So like we're all back channeling to make sure that like, hey, let's make sure that this is as equitable as possible. So that's why I have hope and I'm optimistic about what's going to happen here, because I do think the people are listening. They want it to happen, but unfortunately, when you invite a bunch of tech bros into your community, like they break shit. So,
let me ask a question from the audience now. And in your last 5 minutes, so that this question is specifically about tips for successful crowdfunding, but I think there's a couple of things that you have done really, really, really well. One is, it was one of the first things you said, if you believe in something, you can sell it. So talk to us about how can other founders emulate like the best aspects of your ability to sell your product, sell your company, you know what I mean? Just to like pitch.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. So again, this is very gendered and very stereotypical, but women tend to not go into sales roles. They think sales and networking is very transactional, very icky. I don't want to take part in it. The problem is then we lean out of literally how everything works. Yeah. And I remember at HBS, Tim Butler from the Career Office was like, every CEO in the Fortune 500 at that time had come from sales. And I specifically remember that being like, damn it. And he made the joke about like, no HBS grads going into sales, right? Like, it was also like for HBS grads, like, oh, that's beneath me. Like, it wasn't even gendered. It was just like that. But it's, at the end of the day, if you really think about it, my day is spent selling. I'm either selling my business to customers, I'm selling the dream and vision to potential hires, I'm selling the dream and vision to investors, I'm selling my own team on like staying every day, right? Like, I'm selling myself on like, hey, let's get like tomorrow we're going to do this whole, right? Like, you really do have to build that skill and see it as, especially if you've always been like icked out or like, feel like networking is very transactional. One of the things that I find that helps women is think about it as, I'm building a community for my sisters. And then all of a sudden, like, this happens in political fundraising. When you tell a woman candidate that she's fundraising for her ideas and to help her community, she's like, oh, I can raise $1 billion. But when she thinks it's fundraising for her, she's like, oh, I can't ask money, I can't ask people for money for me. It's like so psychological, and it holds us back. And so as you're thinking about building your community, think of it like, oh, I'm just making the CRM in case a female founder comes to me and says, oh, I'd love to get an introduction. And then you can help that person, right? So like, fine, whatever gets you through the day, but like, understand that you have to sell every day if you're a founder, and you're selling in just different ways, and you got to get comfortable with that.
Okay. So with that, I'm gonna wrap us up. Max, that was just so much fun. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. You are I don't know if you're a firecracker or a firebrand, you're probably a little bit of both. That was super fun. Also, randomly, like, you and I need to get together outside of this because I haven't chimed in a lot, but like, our stories are super parallel. If only like 10 years apart, or 2. So I'm gonna ping you afterwards, and you and I are gonna grab a drink one day when we can all get in airplanes again.
I love that.
Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. Please keep kicking ass. Please, keep trailblazing, and keep passing the baton back. We need more of us to be brave and be bold and do big things. And we're all watching you and rooting for you, and hope to see you ringing that bell at the NASDAQ very soon.
I won't be the youngest woman anymore, but I thank you, everyone. Thanks for all the head nods and the claps and the positive reinforcement. Like, it breaks my heart sometimes when everyone's like, yeah, because that's happened to me too. That sucks. But like, when we can all get together and make our lives better. By the way, feel free to follow, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm terrible at responding to any messages. I don't have time for one-on-ones, unfortunately. But I post a lot on social about like upcoming events or clubhouse rooms where I talk about equity crowdfunding or pitch competitions. So even just following that, like, I'm not trying to get my follower count up. I just like want to help people learn about all these things. And I usually am posting about them there. So hopefully that's helpful in the little time that I have to be helpful.
Well, actually, let me take another 30 seconds. Is there one thing that everybody in the room can do to help you?
Yes. Go to caribu.com, CARIBU.com, and either download Caribu for you and your family if you have a 0 to 7 or 0 to 12-year-old in your life, because it's amazing. It can be a god kid, it can be a niece or nephew. And if you don't have any 0 to 12s in your life, which it happens, please forward it to someone who you think could use Caribu, because again, it's shocking to me that people don't realize there's a better video call out there for kids and families. And I need everyone's help to I'm working on this global domination thing. So if you could help, that'd be great.
All right. Will everybody commit to doing that one thing for Max? I'm in. All right. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So lovely to meet everybody. And thank you to the entire FFA team. You all were amazing. And let's do this again.
Okay. Let's do it again. Rory, I'm sending it back to you.